I'm a proud member of the United States Special Forces, the iconic Green Berets. Over the years, my boots have been stained by the soils of Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and many a land in the African continent. The world's four corners know my footprints, each one hiding tales of horror and heroism, bravery and betrayal. Most of these stories? They're buried deep, shrouded in a secrecy I'm bound to, likely not seeing the light of day until I'm 6 feet under myself. Yet a recent event has compelled me to risk it all, because what happened wasn't in some far-off desert or dense jungle. This horror was born in our own heartland. When I joined SOCOM, I was prepared for the unthinkable, but nothing could prepare me for the horror in my own backyard. This was no foreign threat, no insurgent's ploy. Hell, it wasn't even something human. In sharing this, I'm aware of the target I put on my back, but the world deserves a semblance of the truth. Understand, I must keep certain details close to my chest names, precise locations, and the like. But no, this isn't about concealing the truth. It's about shielding those I care for from the monsters, both man and something else. You may be familiar with the Green Berets. Our team, called Nomad, is one among many with warrior-inspired names, from Perseus to Berserker. Nomad comprises 10 souls. Our leader? A hardened captain from Georgia, supported by a warrant officer, a medic, communication sergeants, and a phalanx of weapon sergeants. Our captain's approach kept us alive. We owe him that much. Our duties for the month seemed simple enough. Remain on Quick Reaction Force, QRF. QRF meant we were the proverbial night's watchmen, ever vigilant. But on one such evening, as we dreamt of an ale at the local tavern, our peace was shattered. "Kentucky," the captain announced, his voice a mixture of confusion and intrigue. Our intel was scarce. We were in the dark about the enemy, their arsenal, or even the terrain. But, as nomads, our mission was clear. Ready ourselves and head to the landing zone. As time ticked and we awaited our transport, tidbits started flowing in. A facility, ensconced in the heart of a mysterious Kentucky National Park, had sent out a distress call. This park was no ordinary one. It held a grim reputation, its trees bearing silent witness to numerous unsolved disappearances. The very trails that once echoed with the laughter of campers were now sealed, haunted by the past. What awaited us in those eerie woods? We were soon to find out. The sudden urgency, the silent yet palpable tension, left us grappling with questions that refused to be silenced. Why was this clandestine facility nestled within the heart of a national park? Why did they summon us, the Green Berets from the East Coast, for a domestic mission? Why were we rushing into the Kentucky unknown when volatile hotspots across the world might need our attention? The captain, the pillar of our team through countless operations, shared our concerns, assuring us that the scant details he provided were all he was privy to. But his eyes betrayed him. We'd fought side by side for years, and I knew that man inside and out. There was more he wasn't telling us. When the 160th SOAR Night Stalkers, an esteemed aviation unit with 4 decades of history, swooped down to transport us, we were unsurprised to see the Black Hawk. But the arrival of 2 armed escort birds raised eyebrows. We were in America's heartland, not some war-torn desert. Their presence painted an unsettling picture. The journey, though swift thanks to the Night Stalker's prowess, felt interminable. Inside the throbbing belly of that bird, a cacophony engulfed us, making conversation nearly impossible. Still, I noted the captain, lips moving, engaged in what appeared to be a private communique on a discreet channel. Curiosity piqued, I managed to glimpse some scribbled words over his shoulder. Mass casualties, unknown OP4, no blue forces. Touching down in an eerily deserted parking lot beside a ranger station, we alighted in sync, assuming defensive positions as the helos vanished into the night. "Nomads, stand by," our captain's voice cut through the silence, instructing us to secure the perimeter as he approached the ranger station. There, he was met by a middle-aged park ranger, Ranger Fletcher, his weathered features and receding hairline hinting at years of service in these treacherous woods. Outfitted with our GP-NVG, the quad night vision optics, and PQs mounted atop our rifles, we had an advantage over the encompassing darkness. We became denizens of the night, its secrets laid bare before us. Yet the forest ahead shimmered, an uncanny, fluorescent dance that was more disconcerting than comforting. The captain, returning from his brief, keyed into our communication line. Nomads, we're heading into a mass casualty scenario. The enemy remains unidentified, but initial intel indicates extreme close-range danger. There's no allied force on site. If you spot anyone from our side, they've gone rogue. He then turned to Ranger Fletcher. Anything to add? The ranger hesitated, a chill creeping into his voice. I've heard a barrage of gunshots emanating from those woods. Whatever you boys do, stay together. This forest ... It has a way of turning men against each other. A murmur of unease ruffled through our ranks, with one of our medics snickering. Well, that's heartwarming. Our captain, unflinching, responded. Eyes sharp, cover your brothers. Let's dive into this abyss. And with that, we advanced, the weight of unknown horrors bearing down on us. Each of us performed our unique ritual of readiness. And as I exhaled, the icy chill of the night was replaced by the heavy foreboding of what awaited in the tree line. The mood was palpable. Even our usually stoic medic, in a bid to fend off his apprehension, slapped his helmet, hyping himself for what lay ahead. Our captain, ever the sentinel of our souls, drew from beneath his combat shirt a small crucifix necklace. I watched as he pressed it to his lips, perhaps whispering a silent prayer, before guiding us into the abyss of the forest. Marching behind him in a staggered column, our vigilant eyes pierced the void, the gentle hum of IR lasers playing over the vast wilderness. But while our sensors were alive and active, the forest itself was deafeningly silent. Normally, any forest would be a cacophony of ambient noises, the song of the crickets, the distant cooing of night birds, the rustle of nocturnal creatures. But this forest? It was dead silent. A silence so profound I could hear a teammate breathing a few meters ahead. The realization hit us. The woods, this ancient entity, was silenced by a fear greater than our own. Was it fear of us, or something else lurking in the shadows? After what felt like hours but must have been minutes, the captain signaled a stop. We found ourselves facing a foreboding metal chain-link fence. 4 of our weapon sergeants and our ever-hyped medic immediately assumed a defensive position, their backs to us, eyes scanning the depths of the forest. The captain, another sergeant, and I approached the gate. A sign screamed at us, "No trespassing." Behind the barrier lay a gravel path leading to a lone guard shack. The captain tried signaling, hoping against hope that someone, anyone, would respond. But the stark crimson splash across the shack's interior quelled that hope. A grotesquely positioned arm lay limp, halfway out the doorway. Swiftly, one of our sergeants, always prepared with his breaching kit, began his work on the gate lock. But then it came, a chilling, unholy scream. It was the sound of a woman, her cry filled with anguish, intertwined grotesquely with a gargled growl, as if an animal was being tortured. The cry echoed, its origins indeterminate, but its intent clear. An eerie, low-pitched undertone accompanied it, a sound that seemed to crawl beneath the skin. Even our bravest, those who had faced down death countless times, were rattled. Our Brooklyn-born medic, a behemoth of a man, visibly shuddered. Once I'd seen him use his very finger to plug a bleeding wound, his face unflinching. Now his eyes darted, searching, fearing. "What in God's name was that?" he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. Another sergeant, clutching his M46 tightly, responded with a dark chuckle. "Feels like we've stepped straight into a horror flick." But amidst our collective dread, one figure remained resolute. The captain. His stance unwavering, eyes sharp, he readied us for the next step into the unknown. The captain, with a glint of determination in his eyes, commanded, "Pull yourselves together and tighten those jock straps." Swiftly breaking the lock, he led the way, his presence radiating both authority and assurance. I followed suit, taking position alongside him to assess the now accessible guard booth. The aftermath of the scene was gruesome. A lone guard, void of any recognizable identification, bore a gut-wrenching wound. No gunshot, but an enormous hole, reminiscent of being impaled by a massive lamppost. Trying to conceal my shock, I stifled a gasp, but the image was burned into my memory. The captain, visibly disturbed by the sight, spat disdainfully on the grass, rallying us once again. "Keep your eyes sharp and your heads down," he instructed. We then proceeded, forming a structured column, each man knowing his position, each step measured and deliberate. Our comm sergeant soon relayed our position, his voice a beacon of connection amidst the looming uncertainty. But one thing gnawed at me. If he was communicating our location, who had the captain been conversing with earlier? Soon, the dark mysteries of the facility began to unravel. Floodlights punctuated the perimeter, revealing a grim sight. Guards, all brutally mutilated, their armor and weapons bearing witness to a fierce combat. Their last stand had been valiant, but the onslaught they faced was overpowering. Our captain's voice cut through the tension. "Nomads, assemble!" In perfect synchronization, we converged on the entrance, navigating the chaotic aftermath of the lobby. A mangled scene of furniture and victims welcomed us. A civilian staff member, her life brutally extinguished, served as a chilling reminder of the violence that transpired. The comm sergeant's observation only deepened the weight of our mission. "She was unarmed, sir." Our path led us through double doors to a pristine porcelain corridor, its sterile nature dramatically contrasted by the grotesque aftermath of violence. Dead guards, their lifeless eyes staring into the void, bore testament to a savage attack. The flickering light from below beckoned us towards the basement. Descending, the architecture morphed into a T-shaped hallway. The center path extended deeply, culminating in reinforced doors, while both ends of the T seemed curtailed. Notably, the rooms adjacent to the hall appeared surprisingly intact, their resilient wire glass barriers pockmarked but unbroken. Our resident expert, the comm sergeant, noted the oddity. "This has to be ballistic glass." The medic, inquisitive as always, responded, "Why didn't they seek refuge inside?" Our captain, ever the realist, remarked, "It seems they faced a surprise, but from within." Though the medic tried to retort, the hallway's bloody devastation demanded our full attention. It was evident, the heart of this mystery lay deeper within the facility. The lab's interior painted a grim tableau. Mutilated guards lay scattered among spent shell casings, their last moments marked by a desperate struggle. The white lab coats worn by the technicians were no longer pristine but stained deep crimson, testaments to a chillingly violent end. It was a sight that could make the sturdiest of souls waver. We all felt it, a profound realization that this massacre was the work of something or someone that killed without discretion. With a determined resolve, the captain initiated a rolling T formation, guiding us into the depths of the horror-ridden corridor. My position was to the right, a gunner stationed centrally, and another teammate flanking the left. Our progress was systematic, mirroring our training despite the harrowing circumstances. But as we approached the end, we were faced with sealed doors, accompanied by an eerie absence of any form of ingress. A trail of dark, coagulated blood snaked its way from beneath them, a chilling indicator of what might lie beyond. As the captain's gaze settled on an electronic pad to the right of the doors, intrigue flashed across his face. "A hand scanner? Never thought I'd see one outside of movies," he murmured. Taking a calculated risk, he toggled a secure communication frequency, only to be met with silence. His resolve never waning, he turned his attention to the fallen guard nearby, noting aloud, "Got a hand right here." As the reality of using the deceased guard's hand dawned upon us, the tense stillness of the corridor was shattered. A sudden crashing sound erupted from a nearby lab door. All eyes turned in its direction, weapons at the ready. The captain, ever the epitome of leadership, approached the door first. Breaking protocol, he signaled for a formation, positioning himself at the forefront. It was a move that spoke volumes about the gravity of the situation. As the door's electronic lock disengaged, our adrenaline surged. Upon entry, our beams darted across the room, landing on an anxious figure who quickly raised his hands in surrender. Emerging from the shadows, the trembling figure was revealed to be a bespectacled scientist, his eyes wide with fear behind those round glasses. Without hesitation, the captain charged at him, pinning him with an intensity that made even the toughest of us wince. "ID, now," he growled. Scrambling, the lab technician produced an identification card, which the captain scrutinized and then relayed its details over the frequency. However, before any further information could be gleaned, the technician, panic evident in his voice, interjected, "I was only running chemical tests. We need to leave now." The captain's response was swift and fierce. his face inches from the terrified man. "Open the doors, and you better tell us everything." The palpable tension in the room signaled that we were about to uncover deeper layers of this dark mystery. The captain's voice carried a fierce intensity as he bellowed, "Open these doors immediately!" At his signal, the weapons sergeant forced the trembling lab tech forward with a rough shove, causing him to nearly collapse against the imposing doorframe. The captain's dark chuckle echoed in the narrow corridor. "No dallying now, Doc." Without missing a beat, I gripped the man's shirt collar, pulling him upright, positioning him in front of the seemingly impregnable blast doors. Releasing him from my grasp, the captain's imposing figure loomed large, pressing the scientist's face so close to the door it seemed to meld with the cold metal. "Hand on the scanner now," the captain demanded. As he seized the technician's wrist, the latter's protests grew more frantic. "I don't have access. Please, I've injured my hand." Surprisingly, the medic, a seasoned Green Beret, often stoic and seemingly unaffected by much of what we'd seen, interjected, "Captain, come on." But the captain's gaze was unwavering, his determination palpable as he wrestled the tech's hand into position. Seizing the moment, the weapons sergeant lunged, pinning the lab tech to the blast door. The captain masterfully positioned the technician's hand onto the scanner, which then sprang to life. Illuminated in a radiant blue glow, the scanner meticulously analyzed every ridge and whorl of the handprint before the screen flushed green. The once formidable doors began their mechanical retreat, unveiling the chamber behind. As the massive doors creaked open, a panorama of chaos unfurled before our eyes. Flashing emergency lights bathed the room in a disorienting, pulsating red, revealing the gruesome remnants of what had transpired. Glass shards, mingled with a strange blue liquid, and the lifeblood of several guards, pooled ominously at the entrance. Without hesitation, the captain roughly yanked the technician to his feet. "Recognize them, Doc? Acquaintances of yours, perhaps?" He propelled the man into the chamber, causing him to slip on the treacherous concoction of glass and fluids. As we followed suit, the horror of the scene took full shape. The extent of my previous encounters with the grim facets of humanity seemed to pale in comparison to what lay before us. Rows of ominous glass cylinders, reminiscent of grotesque aquariums, lined the walls. They were surrounded by an intricate web of monitors, hard drives, and other unfamiliar tech. Amidst the carnage was evidence of a struggle involving at least 24 guards. Yet the most chilling sight were the contents of those tubes. Humanoid forms, suspended and transformed, their features distorted by whatever malevolent process they had endured. The captain, fury evident in every line of his posture, threw the lab tech against one of the tubes. The sound of breaking cartilage echoed hauntingly in the vast space. "Well, Doc, which one is it? Which of these abominations are you responsible for?" His words hinted at some foreknowledge that we weren't privy to. The technician's response was a mix of fear and defiance, blood pooling in his mouth as he spat. "I don't—" But the captain's rage was uncontested. Pinning the man against the room's wall, he roared, "Yet your hand magically opens this chamber? How many innocents did you abduct? What unspeakable experiments did you conduct on them? And which one managed to break free?" A chill ran down my spine as the realization dawned on me. This wasn't just a room of scientific experiments gone awry. It was a crypt of stolen souls, cruelly altered beyond recognition. The weight of our discovery threatened to crush us under its grim significance. The horrors contained within those tubes seemed endless, with each discovery more grotesque than the last. One individual's skin morphed into a rough, reptilian texture along their left arm, culminating in a gaping, abyssal hole in their chest, from which a twisted skull emerged. My breath caught in my throat, my boots instinctively moving backward, crushing fragments of glass underfoot. Murmured expletives punctuated the charged silence, each member of the team grappling with the visceral revulsion the specimens incited. Another grotesque figure had its mouth grotesquely sealed, the skin stretched and smooth. But from the sides, a second, even more horrifying set of jagged teeth protruded, creating a monstrous parody of a grin. Instead of eyes, the empty sockets were covered over, as if nature herself had refused to look upon the abomination. The medic, always steadfast and resolute, seemed shaken to his core. He directed our attention to a particular specimen with a spine that seemed to have burst out of its back, every vertebrae exaggerated and protruding obscenely. "My God," he whispered, his voice trembling with revulsion. "What have they done?" The captain's voice, cold and steely, cut through the stunned silence, confronting the sobbing lab technician. "They're dead, aren't they?" he demanded. Through choked sobs, the technician confirmed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, during surgery." But the captain's rage was relentless. "If you're lying, I'll ensure you put each one of them out of their misery personally." The weight of the captain's words seemed to crush the technician further. My own gaze wandered over the ghastly sights contained within the tubes, trying to reconcile the human forms twisted by unspeakable experiments. "Where is she, Doc?" The captain's words snapped me back to attention. The tech, already defeated, could only sob in response. But the captain was relentless, his rage palpable. "Where?" he repeated, his voice filled with restrained fury. The technician's voice was weak, but filled with dread. "It escaped. Killed everyone. My colleagues, the guards, everyone." The captain's fury reached a fever pitch as he seized the man, his words a venomous hiss. "Your friends, who turned innocent souls into these abominations?" The room was charged with tension. All eyes were on the captain and the terrified technician. With a cold detachment, the captain began to count down, every number a chilling reminder of our intent. Just as it seemed the countdown would reach its inevitable conclusion, the technician choked out the information we needed. The woods. It made that haunting scream barely 10 minutes ago. A mocking laugh erupted from the captain. "So it's in the woods." Without hesitation, he readied his sidearm. The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. In a swift motion, I tripped the technician, returning him to his knees, where he only found the will to stammer about the legality of our actions. But before another word could be spoken, a haunting cry echoed through the facility. Not from some distant mountain or a dense forest, but from the very staircase leading to our location. The chilling, plaintive call of something both human and monstrous merged into one. And then, darkness. Every light, every monitor, every electronic device was plunged into an abyssal void. That inhuman cry echoed once more, a plea almost discernible within its tones. "Help me." With trained precision, we activated our night optics, illuminating the abyss with the green glow of our lasers. But beneath that professional exterior, the shaking of our beams betrayed our collective fear. The nightmarish reality of the tubes was about to confront us, and we braced for the unknown terror that lay ahead. The atmosphere was thick with palpable dread, the kind that coils in your stomach and grips your heart. The captain's voice pierced through the overwhelming tension, a low growl aimed at the lab tech. "If you run, it's the end for you." The lab technician, eyes wide with fear, nodded frantically, yet found words failing him. The captain's gaze bore into him. "You might think you understand, but believe me, you truly don't." The mournful cries of the creature echoed once more, a chilling lament that seemed to come from both the depths of despair and the edge of rage. With every footfall, our apprehension grew, the sound growing closer and louder, an agonizing cacophony that was almost deafening in its intensity. Then, from the oppressive gloom, it emerged. Its silhouette was a monstrous juxtaposition of nightmarish features, standing easily 6 feet tall. The grotesque mantis-like legs, smeared with blood, were a terrifying sight. But it was the creature's face that truly held our gaze. Smooth, yet its eyes glowed with a feral intensity, illuminating the surrounding darkness and reflecting our own horrified faces back at us. There was a collective intake of breath, a room filled with the best of the best, Green Berets, seasoned warriors, and yet, at that moment, we were all paralyzed by fear. But the captain was the first to shake off the paralysis. His weapon roared to life, bullets tearing through the air, each a messenger of death aimed at the abomination before us. The room erupted in gunfire, but the creature's response was nothing short of terrifying. It let out an anguished scream, reminiscent of a woman's desperate pleas, and then charged forward with unnatural speed. The mayhem that ensued was pandemonium. Glass shattered, water spilled, and amidst the chaos, one of the mutated specimens from the tube crashed to the floor, releasing a vile stench that clawed at our senses. The creature was relentless. Its focus shifted from one of our men to the hapless scientist. The scientist's desperate bid for escape was short-lived. The creature was upon him, pinning him with a force that seemed to crush the very life out of him. Those smaller, almost human arms on its torso began a macabre dance, tearing into the man's flesh, rending, ripping, feasting. Amidst the horror, the captain's voice rang out, steady and commanding, "We can't face it here. Outdoors now." He was right. The enclosed space gave the creature an advantage. Every man raced for the exit, weapons still blazing, their heat doing little to dissuade the monstrosity. The scent of decay was swiftly replaced by the crisp air of the forest as we emerged into the open. Desperation fueled our actions as we lit up the night with road flares, illuminating our makeshift battleground in a riot of colors. Behind the shelter of an old sedan, the medic worked quickly to tend to the injured, while the gunner, atop a car hood, aimed his weapon towards the facility's entrance, ready for the creature's inevitable pursuit. The captain's voice was the anchor amidst the chaos. "Rendon, get that damned communication up. We need air support, now!" Taking cover behind a large SUV, I joined the others, every sense attuned to the looming threat and the nightmare that was soon to emerge from the facility's depths. The tension in the air was a thick, palpable fog, each of us aiming at the door with bated breath. The screams from within the facility had ceased, replaced by an eerie, almost unbearable silence. And then, like a banshee emerging from hell, the creature burst forth, illuminating in the glare of our flares, chem lights, and even the captain's focused tack light. Now, under the full glare, the monstrosity was laid bare. A grotesque patchwork of raw pink muscles contrasted with the clear see-through dermal layer. Parts of its body bore hard, bony armor reminiscent of calcium. Its back featured smaller, mandible-like protrusions, while its head, eerily human in some twisted, malevolent design, bore eyes filled with nothing but undiluted rage. It released a deafening roar, the sound reverberating through the night and chilling our very souls. Our gunner, ever the fast reactor, opened fire, the rounds from his weapon tearing into the creature's armor and flesh. The creature recoiled, a hiss escaping its maw, before it lunged in retaliation. The captain's evasive maneuvers saw the beast's mandibles bury deep into the sedan's roof. The medic, acting swiftly, shielded the wounded sergeant from the creature's frenzied attack. Suddenly the creature turned its focus on me. I maneuvered around it, unloading my firearm into its back. Blood poured from its new wounds, splattering on the ground as the creature wheeled on me. I found myself pinned, my rifle my only shield against its snapping jaws. But the tide turned again when the gunner managed to blast a part of the creature's exposed skull. The captain, ever the brave leader, took this opportunity, jamming his weapon into the monster's head and unleashing a torrent of bullets. The monster roared in agony, lunging once again at the captain, who deftly moved, sending the creature crashing into an SUV. In the chaos, the captain drew a fragmentation grenade. The battlefield's dynamics changed instantly. Commands to take cover echoed. The surrounding environment transformed into a refuge. I slid beside the sedan, joining the medic in shielding our wounded comrade. The countdown began, with the familiar sound of the grenade spoon releasing. Then, a ground-shaking explosion engulfed the scene, shrapnel scattering, windows shattering, and the air pulsating with the force of the blast. But nature wasn't done yet. A second explosion, larger and fiercer, erupted from the SUV's gas tank, sending flames high into the night sky, their heat licking at our faces, making the darkness seem even darker. After the explosion subsided, we hesitantly emerged from cover, scanning for signs of the creature. There, in the midst of the fiery wreckage, the creature, though terribly maimed, began to pull itself free, driven by an indomitable will and a relentless rage. Amid the darkness and flames, the creature's very essence seemed to cook from within. Its skin crackled and bubbled, and its once imposing bone plating now lay wasted and burned. It looked around, its eyes having succumbed to the heat, now grotesque melted orbs. Then, in a hauntingly human gesture, its body convulsed, letting out a pitiful plea, "Help me." With those words, the ground greeted its burning form, still smoldering from its intense ordeal. From behind the vehicle, the captain took decisive action. Stepping forward with a determined stride, he trained his weapon on the creature's head. Without hesitation, he fired 3 shots, each one landing with brutal precision, causing the scorched skull to cave in grotesquely. Suddenly, a burst of light pierced the darkness, accompanied by the unmistakable drone of rotary blades overhead. The Black Hawk's spotlight cut through the night, compelling me to shield my face. As the radio crackled to life, confirming our location's security, I couldn't help but get caught in a whirlwind of thoughts about the entity before us. Then the vans, or more accurately, armored trucks, arrived. While I have to maintain discretion about certain details, it's hard to overlook the individuals that disembarked. Dressed in black combat gear, devoid of any insignia or identifiable markings, they exuded an air of clandestine professionalism. The equipment they possessed, from the advanced hazmat suits to the high-tech drones, seemed leaps and bounds ahead of anything we had. Yet despite their intimidating presence, their demeanor wasn't hostile. Quite the opposite. One even offered a cigarette as a gesture of camaraderie. As we prepped for extraction, I noted a particular individual conversing with our captain. Shorter in stature, but with an undeniable presence, his slicked-back hair and sharp attire hinted at someone of significance. The discreet bulge under his sports coat spoke of a hidden weapon. Eventually, the captain rejoined us, and as we were airborne, the weight of the night's events seemed to press on him. His fatigue was evident as he discarded his helmet, drawing the ire of the aviation crew. Upon our return, I found myself ruminating on the chilling horrors of that facility. The captain had mentioned unspeakable acts, abductions, vile experiments, and unimaginable transformations. Why? For some deranged experiment? A perverse ambition? It was all shrouded in enigma. Those cries for help, the creature's pleas, were a constant, haunting echo, a testament to human cruelty. The group that replaced us was equally mysterious. Among their whispers, German phrases were discernible. While their affiliations and objectives remain unclear, my only hope is that they've gleaned the consequences of toying with forces beyond our understanding, and they never tread that dark path again.